The crowd never stops watching you. At work, in the street, online, every move you make is judged, measured, and stored. They don't see your intentions. They see only one of two things: a man they can respect, or a man they can exploit. And here's the cruel truth: most men expose themselves as prey without even realizing it. They talk too much, they beg too openly, they try too hard to be liked. And in the silent theater of life, those mistakes are fatal. Machiavelli saw it 500 years ago. He warned that power is never about honesty, kindness, or authenticity. It is about control, about the mask you wear, about the aura you project. Today, we'll uncover the mistakes that destroy men, the weapons that elevate them, and the fortress that ensures their name can never be erased. The crowd never blinks. They are always watching. Your co-workers glance when you walk into the meeting room. Your rivals measure every gesture, every hesitation. Even strangers on the street make quiet judgments you'll never hear. Every step, every tone of voice, every careless slip tells them one of two things: this man carries strength, or this man can be preyed upon. That theater of judgment never sleeps. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago, and he understood something most people still refuse to admit: public life is not neutral. It is performance. And in performance, the smallest mistake can undo years of effort. History is littered with the remains of men who didn't fall because of battlefields, betrayals, or storms of fate. They fell because they revealed too much, spoke too loudly, begged too obviously, or tried too hard to be liked. Machiavelli described these errors with brutal clarity. He warned of 9 mistakes that corrode reputation and invite the dagger. And what is terrifying is not how rare they are, but how common. Nearly every man makes them, often without realizing until the damage is permanent. The first fatal mistake is bleeding in public. We live in a culture where people chant the gospel of authenticity. They say, be real, show your feelings, be vulnerable, but power is not therapy. The crowd doesn't admire tears. It doesn't respect rage. It doesn't reward panic. It records it, analyzes it, and stores it for later use. Your emotion becomes someone else's weapon. When you cry in public, they don't see sincerity. They see weakness. When you lash out in anger, they don't hear justice. They hear instability. When you panic, they don't think you need help. They smell blood. Public life is not a safe space. It is closer to a coliseum. And in the coliseum, there are only 2 roles: the beast that terrifies or the broken man dragged in chains. History offers cruel reminders. In 1972, Edmund Muskie, a U.S. presidential candidate, broke into tears while defending his wife from press attacks. What the crowd saw was not love or loyalty. They saw a man collapsing. Within weeks, his campaign disintegrated. One brief crack, one uncontrolled display, and a career evaporated. That is why Machiavelli would laugh at modern obsessions with being authentic. For him, the mask was not hypocrisy, it was survival. The unreadable face, the fortress of composure, the stoic silence, these do not make you fake, they make you untouchable, and untouchable men inspire fear. The others inspire pity. The second fatal mistake is mistaking noise for strength. Loudness is not power. In fact, it often betrays insecurity. The man who raises his voice admits that his words alone are not enough. He is grasping. He is flailing. He is already cornered. Consider a meeting room. 2 executives argue. One bangs the table, shouting, red-faced. The other sits calm, watching, waiting. Then, with a single line, delivered in quiet control, he cuts deeper than 10 minutes of shouting. Who wins the room? The loud man releases heat. The calm man generates gravity. Richard Nixon's career demonstrates this poison. In the famous debates with John F. Kennedy, Nixon sometimes let anger and paranoia slip through. His voice grew sharp, his face sweaty, his presence unsettled. Kennedy didn't need to dominate. He simply let Nixon collapse under the weight of his own noise. Later, Nixon's paranoia and angry outbursts caught on tape, and those recordings destroyed him more thoroughly than any enemy could have. Machiavelli's lesson is clear: a prince never explains himself to those beneath him. Silence terrifies, because in silence people imagine things worse than anything you could say aloud. The third fatal mistake is the scent of need. Nothing destroys attraction, influence, or respect faster than desperation. Yet the desperate man rarely sees it in himself. Need clings to him like smoke. You can feel it in his voice, in his body, in the way he begs for loyalty or attention. In dating, the desperate one loses interest the moment he tries to cling. In business, the desperate one never secures the deal because everyone senses he needs it too much. In politics, the desperate one is already abandoned before the fight begins. Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, provides a modern case. In 2017, a video surfaced of him arguing with one of his own drivers. He begged, snapped, pleaded, lashed out, all in the span of minutes. That clip went viral. Overnight, the image of a visionary disruptor was replaced by that of a fragile, desperate man clinging to power. Within months, he was forced out of the company he built. His desperation did not protect him. It destroyed him. Machiavelli's advice was simple: the prince may face betrayal, bankruptcy, or rebellion, but his posture must remain calm, his voice steady, his gaze unreadable. Desperation is not honesty. It is surrender. The fourth fatal mistake is drowning others in flattery. Many believe praise buys loyalty, that constant compliments build bonds. But in truth, excessive flattery signals weakness. It tells the world you crave approval, that you lower yourself in the hope of being liked. And the man who seeks to be liked has already surrendered authority. In the French court of Louis XIV, flattery was an art form. Courtiers drowned the king in endless praise. Most were forgotten, dismissed as sycophants. The ones who rose in power were those who understood the value of precision. A single sharp compliment, delivered rarely and with purpose, carried more weight than 10 fawning speeches. Flattery used sparingly can bind. Flattery used endlessly erodes dignity. The fifth fatal mistake is humiliating rivals in public. It feels righteous. It feels powerful. But in truth, public criticism plants a seed of vengeance. The man you humiliate does not forget. Pride is eternal. Steve Jobs once mocked Dropbox in a keynote, dismissing them with a joke. The crowd laughed. But Dropbox did not disappear. They grew stronger. Years later, their name outlived Apple's own cloud attempts. That moment of mockery did not secure victory. It created an enemy for life. Machiavelli understood: to destroy a man, do it quietly. Whisper doubts, plant rumors, withdraw support without spectacle. The quiet assassin outlives the loud judge. The sixth fatal mistake is chasing laughter. Laughter feels intoxicating. It feels like approval, like safety. But the man who becomes the clown is never feared, and a man not feared will never hold power. The Roman Emperor Nero fancied himself an entertainer. He demanded applause, performed songs, and bathed in laughter. His enemies did not respect him. They mocked him, conspired against him, and destroyed him. History remembers him not as a ruler, but as a punchline. Every joke reveals something. Every punchline opens a crack in your armor. Predators notice. They laugh, but not with you, at you. The seventh fatal mistake is oversharing. In our age of confession, people spill everything. Their regrets, their heartbreaks, their ambitions. They do it on social media, in interviews, even in casual conversations. But every piece of information you release becomes a weapon for someone else. Congressman Anthony Weiner learned this the hard way. His oversharing online spiraled into scandal. Screenshots spread. His career collapsed into ridicule. What felt like openness became humiliation. Machiavelli's words echo. Familiarity breeds contempt. A prince wears a mask. He does not bleed out his private life for sympathy. He guards his mystery, because secrecy breeds fear, and fear breeds respect. The eighth fatal mistake is flaunting wealth. Many men think displaying success will inspire admiration. They flash cars, watches, houses, designer suits, Instagram lives. They believe envy equals power. But envy does not create loyalty. It creates resentment. Marie Antoinette flaunted jewels while her people starved. They did not love her sparkle. They sharpened blades. Her arrogance brought no safety. It painted a target on her back. Admiration fades quickly. Envy lingers until it strikes. Machiavelli's law is merciless here. Let others suspect your fortune, but never parade it. True power hums quietly. It does not scream. The ninth fatal mistake is losing control of presence. Even before you open your mouth, judgment is passed. Your walk, your stillness, your gaze, your posture all speak louder than words. A trembling voice, darting eyes, slouched shoulders, these announce weakness instantly. In 1988, presidential candidate Michael Dukakis was asked in a debate about his wife being hypothetically assaulted. He answered with icy detachment, but his presence was lifeless. No emotion, no command, no weight. Voters didn't see strength. They saw emptiness. His campaign collapsed, not on policy, but on presence. Machiavelli knew what emperors and generals knew. Calm stillness terrifies more than frantic noise. Your body is your crown. Lose it, and the throne collapses with it. Look closely at the pattern. Every mistake is rooted in the same disease: loss of control. Lose control of emotion, and you are prey. Lose control of volume, and you are mocked. Lose control of need, and you are discarded. Lose control of dignity, and you are forgotten. The man who cannot control himself will never control others. Each mistake is a crack. Each crack invites the dagger, and the dagger never misses. This is why Machiavelli's warnings remain timeless, because men do not usually collapse in one dramatic moment. They collapse quietly, through slips, through cracks, through careless gestures made in front of others. Public life is not forgiving. The crowd does not forget, and the man who stumbles in front of them will find that reputation is fragile, and once broken, it rarely heals. If the 9 fatal mistakes rot reputation from the inside, then what remains is the opposite question: what builds it? What gives a man gravity, authority, and the kind of presence that silences a room before he even speaks? Machiavelli was not only a critic of weakness, he was also an architect of power. He understood that in a world ruled by perception, strength is not about muscle or weapons, it is about aura. It is about the way people feel in your presence. Do they feel calm under your gaze? Or do they feel unsettled, unsure, slightly afraid to misstep? That is the difference between a man who survives and a man who rules. The first weapon is silence. Most men speak too much, reveal too much, explain too much. They cannot resist the urge to defend themselves, to justify their choices, to argue endlessly. Every word becomes a thread that others can pull, but silence breeds fear. Silence forces others to fill in the blanks, and what they imagine is often more intimidating than anything you could have said. In a negotiation, the silent man wins. The other party grows nervous, fills the air with concessions, reveals weaknesses. In politics, the silent figure becomes an enigma, attracting endless speculation. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strategy. Vladimir Putin, whatever one thinks of him, mastered this tactic. In press conferences, he often speaks less than his rivals, letting pauses stretch, letting silence work like a vice. Reporters stumble to fill the gap. The silence itself becomes his presence. Machiavelli would have smiled at this. The prince does not outtalk, he outwaits. The second weapon is control over expression. Your face is a battlefield. Most men allow every flicker of emotion to show. irritation, surprise, nervousness. But the unreadable face terrifies. When you cannot be read, others hesitate. They second-guess themselves. They hold back. That hesitation is power. Ancient Chinese generals mastered this art. They sat in stillness, unreadable, while their rivals exhausted themselves with guesses. The battle was half won before the armies even clashed. In modern times, consider poker players. The term poker face is not about cards. It is about dominance. The man who betrays nothing wins not by luck, but by control. Machiavelli would say the prince is a mask of calm. To remove the mask is not authenticity, it is suicide. The third weapon is selective generosity. Constant kindness is not power, it is servitude. But the occasional, strategic act of generosity cements loyalty more deeply than endless gifts. In ancient Rome, generals returning from campaigns did not shower their soldiers with daily indulgence. They offered rare but monumental rewards: land, treasure, citizenship. That scarcity made the gift unforgettable. Contrast that with a man who is endlessly giving. His gifts are taken for granted. His generosity turns invisible. Strategic generosity, however, creates an eternal debt. In the corporate world, Steve Jobs again offers an example. He was ruthless, demanding, often cold, but when he offered praise or reward, it struck like lightning. Employees carried those rare moments in memory for life. That was not weakness. That was a weapon. Machiavelli would say, give rarely, but when you do, give in a way that binds a man's loyalty forever. The fourth weapon is intimidation by stillness. Movement can reveal nervousness. Fidgeting, pacing, adjusting, twitching, all signal inner chaos. But stillness radiates control. A general who stands motionless while his army waits projects invincibility. A CEO who listens without shifting in his chair dominates the room without speaking. Stillness is unnatural for most, which is why it unnerves everyone who witnesses it. The fifth weapon is unpredictability. Predictable men are easy to trap. Their routines, their words, their patterns can be exploited. But the unpredictable man is dangerous. He keeps rivals guessing. He never reveals whether he will strike hard, strike soft, or not strike at all. This unpredictability creates hesitation, and hesitation is fatal in power struggles. Consider the Cold War. The United States maintained an image of unpredictability through doctrines like mutually assured destruction. Enemies could never be sure of the response. That uncertainty alone prevented attacks. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, but best of all is to be unpredictable, for fear grows stronger when it is mixed with doubt." The sixth weapon is reputation itself. Reputation is not decoration. It is armor. A man known for ruthlessness rarely has to prove it. A man known for fairness rarely has to defend it. Reputation does the work before the battle begins. Cesare Borgia, Machiavelli's model prince, ruled partly by action, but mostly by reputation. His name alone was enough to paralyze rivals. The less he had to fight, the longer he could rule. The seventh weapon is mystery. In a world addicted to transparency, mystery becomes rare and therefore powerful. A man who shares little, who reveals nothing of his inner world, becomes fascinating. Others project fantasies onto him. They overestimate his strength, his plans, his reach. That illusion becomes self-fulfilling. Andy Warhol mastered this in art. He said little, revealed almost nothing of his true self, and the vacuum made him legendary. The less you say, the more others invent, and their invention usually magnifies you. The eighth weapon is calculated cruelty. Mercy has its place, but cruelty, when used rarely and strategically, secures power faster than kindness. Cesare Borgia once left a cruel lieutenant to rule harshly, then staged his execution in public. The people praised Borgia for his mercy, forgetting that the cruelty had been his strategy from the start. One calculated act of cruelty erased hundreds of smaller resentments. Machiavelli understood cruelty, if swift and decisive, secures loyalty better than endless compromise. The ninth weapon is legacy. Power without legacy is smoke. It vanishes when you do. But power with legacy becomes eternal. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, built his legacy not only through conquest, but through writings that still echo centuries later. Napoleon reshaped Europe not only through war, but through laws that remain in effect today. Legacy is the fortress that guards your name when your body is gone. Without it, you are forgotten. With it, you become immortal. What ties these weapons together is a single truth: control. The world does not reward those who lose control of their emotions, their words, their generosity, their image. The world rewards those who shape perception, who master stillness, who wield unpredictability like a blade. Every weapon is about shifting the crowd's gaze, bending it, directing it, until what they see is not you, but the aura you have constructed. But weapons are not enough. To rule, one must also construct the fortress of legacy. Machiavelli warned princes to avoid depending solely on armies or wealth. Armies can be defeated, wealth can be stolen, legacy cannot be taken. Legacy is built from reputation, myth, and story. It is not about truth. It is about memory. Consider Alexander the Great. He died young. His empire shattered almost immediately. But his legend endured for centuries because his story was told as if he had been touched by gods. Caesar was assassinated, but his name became a title worn by emperors for 1,000 years. Even Napoleon, exiled and defeated, wrote memoirs that turned him into a tragic hero rather than a fallen tyrant. The fortress of legacy outlives defeat, and this is where the modern man fails. He thinks power is about money in the bank, followers on a screen, likes, shares, applause. These vanish. They fade with the next cycle, the next scandal, the next trend. True power is the story whispered about you when you are not in the room. It is the aura that lingers long after you leave. That aura cannot be bought. It must be built, brick by brick, through silence, mystery, stillness, selective cruelty, and a vision larger than yourself. Machiavelli's final lesson was never about politics alone. It was about the theater of human existence. Life is not a neutral stage. Every step is watched. Every word is weighed. Every mistake is a crack. The crowd does not forget, and the man who ignores this truth dies twice, first in reputation, then in memory. So ask yourself, when you walk into a room, what do they see? Do they see calm, command, silence that unsettles? Or do they see need, noise, desperation? Do they see a prince or prey? The answer is not given by birth. It is built by choice. Every gesture is a brick. Every silence is a stone. Every mask you wear is mortar. Build your fortress. Build it high. Build it cold. And when the crowd looks up at its walls, let them wonder not who you are, but how they will ever bring you down. Because they won't. And if they try, they will find that you are already beyond them. Not just a man, not just a presence, but a legacy.